Hey everyone, we're back for more Buddhism. Now, 45 years, the Buddha walked all over the land teaching his peeps how to find enlightenment as he taught this new religion kind of grew up around him. Somebody said, "Well, are you a god?" And he said, "No." "And are you a saint?" "No." "What are you then?" And he said, "I am awake." And he was awake to the realization of what it was that of understanding the Four Noble Truths, understanding the wisdom that lies within the fact that we are somehow part of the transcendence that goes beyond this world and the physicality of this world. So he said, "I'm awake," and this is the meaning of the name Buddha, the awakened one. And at 80 years old, he dies of food poisoning, which is super anticlimactic, I think. After his death, his followers saved some of his bones and teeth as relics, believing that power still resided in him. Personally, I think that's kind of funny since like possessions are like something we're trying to avoid, and yet we're collecting these relics. I don't know. All right, so what was the difference between Buddhism and Hinduism? A lot of people kind of don't quite get that. Now, Buddha found that his new religion was different from Hinduism in a couple different ways. Number one, Buddha taught that following the Noble Eightfold Path could be done without the long fasts and the difficult yoga practices of the Hindu holy men and women. Now, remember, in Hinduism, only the top caste could really achieve any kind of spiritual depth, right? Everybody else is just working to make a living. But in Buddhism, Siddhartha or the Buddha believed that anybody could do this, right? And that this was a little less difficult way. And it was known as the middle way. It was still powerful, but it wasn't just for a few. Now, Buddha didn't believe in the caste system, and he didn't believe in worshiping all the Hindu gods and goddesses, and he definitely didn't like the sacrifices. He believed we should work out our own salvation and self-guidance in service to others. So there was this real kind of um, in understanding who we were in our connection to the transcendence. It also meant that we were connected to others around us. That's super powerful, and we can find that in any religion. That would definitely you could definitely pull that out of the pages of the Gospels of Jesus. Buddha would wander around teaching with his band of followers until the rainy season would come, and then he'd settle in one place. And this is a tradition that is still today that Buddhist monks travel around and are provided with material support, and then they provide learning and wisdom to people around them. Some other Buddhist stuff, some of the kind of fun um, from myths and stuff. His mother, Maya, died 7 days after his birth because no child can come from the same womb as Buddha. That sounds really familiar to Christianity in regards to Mary being, a ever virgin, because nobody could come from the same womb as Jesus. The Buddha touches the ground with his right hand. You take a look at all of the Buddhist statues, and you're going to see a whole bunch of different symbols and stuff like that. If he's touching the ground with his right hand, this is calling upon Mother Earth to witness his victory over the demon who tried to stop his enlightenment. Just before he achieved enlightenment, this demon comes and tempts him in the same way Jesus was tempted in the desert. It was he was tempted with beautiful daughters, an army of demons, and magic to kill him. But Buddha stayed strong, and Mara was defeated. And he meditated the whole night after defeating Mara, and then that's how he achieved enlightenment after that. Um, and after his enlightenment, an aura of colored light uh, radiating and levitating his body. This is the origin of the Buddhist halo, and you see this over there in the picture with the Buddha having a halo. So that's cool. Um, the wisdom bump. This stands for the wisdom of the Buddha. The eight spoked wheel, as you've seen a number of different times, especially in the hand of the Buddha, as a symbol of his teaching, the eightfold path. The palms of the hands are often colored red, and this is traditionally a mark of beauty. The lotus throne, as you can see over there, the Buddha is sitting on. The lotus plant has roots in the mud, but the flower is open. So it's a sense of breaking through the water into the light. It's a state of enlightenment. And when the Buddha was born, he took 7 steps and 7 lotus blooms sprang up. After his enlightenment, oh yeah, we already talked about that. Um, One interesting thing I thought was 3 weeks after his enlightenment, the Buddha was protected from a rainstorm by the Serpent King Musalinda. And so you see this picture down here. You're like, oh, look out, Buddha! Don't get, the snake's behind you. Actually, Musalinda is protecting him by having his hood over the Buddha and protecting him from the rain. Now, if the right hand is raised in an open palm, this is a fear banishing gesture. So there are lots of symbols on where their hands are and what they're doing. It's kind of cool. Okay, so stupas. Since the Buddha dissuaded his followers from speculating about existence after life, there are very few representations of him. There are a lot more symbols: the wheel, his footprints, the tree of enlightenment, and these stupas, these temples. There are special structures to hold relics, but since there's a limited number of relics, most stupas house sacred writings and images. Today, and throughout Asia, there are thousands of them. Since the Buddha's death, there are all kinds of images, um, and these statues are worshipped by people in kind of a loving reverence. Now, the stupa itself has kind of become a symbol of the Buddha. There are lots of lions that adorn these stupas, and they symbolize royalty. They've kind of become symbolic, where the ground in which they sat symbolizes generosity. The base of the stupa is the moral restraint, and the top, however ornate it is, symbolizes his compassion. Buddhist worship. The followers of Buddhism meditate in front of sacred images. In some countries, services are held 4 times a month, according to the phases of the moon. In other countries, public worship takes place every Sunday. But Buddhists can worship in a temple at any time. They remove their shoes, they enter the temple, they bow before the image of the Buddha, they offer gifts of flowers, food, candles, and then they sit on the floor and meditate. And a common Buddhist prayer is, "May all beings be free from sorrow." Like it. Oops, went back a little too far. Skip back. Some more stuff about Buddhism. Um, in the West, Buddhism is kind of reduced to monks meditating, right? But there are divisions that help to gain grace. And so you can do certain things within Buddhism. Now, Buddhas are people who become a Buddha, become enlightened, if they've achieved enlightenment upon their death. Now, bodhisattvas, these are people who have achieved enlightenment in the world. Like if I just tomorrow achieved enlightenment and continued to live, I would be known as a bodhisattva. And instead of entering nirvana, I became enlightened and now decided to stay here because that's how they understand it. And I would be helping others to achieve enlightenment. And so this is called the great compassion. That instead of me going and enjoying nirvana, I'm here helping you, right? Now, there's many famous Buddhas and bodhisattvas that are pretty famous, um, and so we'll move on from there, and we'll go to the next video.